Welcome. I'm Dr. Owen Anderson, and I'm a professor of philosophy. And I often get questions from my students about popular media, a movie or a TV show, and they'll say, "Hey, Dr. Anderson, I saw this movie. It was so deep, it blew my mind. Can you help explain it? Can you watch it and confirm that it's really deep?" So I thought, yeah, I that sounds great. I like to do that, and sometimes I make videos about it, and you can share the experience with me. This one's one you might not have heard of. I think it's called Midnight Mass, and lots of things happen. They're looking for immortality, but just physical immortality. So that's one part of the story. But what the student asked me was this: they're asking this question. This character's dying, named Erin, and as she dies, she's remembering this account she has of death. And this student was really convinced of it. I thought, this is so deep. Can you watch it with me, Dr. Anderson? So I thought, sure, let's check it out. Let's see if this is deep or only appears to be deep. Did Erin use reason to know what is real? All right, let's listen.
Myself. Myself. That's the problem. That's the whole problem of the whole thing. That word. Self. Word. That's not right. That isn't. I stops a cell at a time, but the brain keeps firing those neurons. Little lightning bolts like fireworks inside, and I thought I'd despair or feel afraid, but I don't feel any of that. None of it. Because I'm too busy. I'm too busy in this moment. Remembering. I remember that every atom in my body was forged in a star. This matter, this body is mostly just empty space after all, and solid matter is just energy vibrating very slowly, and there is no me. There never was. The electrons of my body mingle and dance with the electrons of the ground below me and the air. I'm no longer breathing. And I remain. There is no point where any of that ends and I begin. I am energy, not memory. That's my name, my personality, my choices all came after me. I was before them and I will be after. And everything else is pictures, picked up along the way. Fleeting little dreamlets printed on the tissue of my dying brain. And the lightning that comes between. I am the energy flowing in the neurons, and I'm returning. By remembering, I'm returning home. It's like a drop of water falling back into the ocean. Been apart. All of us. Apart. You, me, and my little girl, and my mother, and my father. Everyone who's ever been, every plant, every animal, every atom, every star, every galaxy, all of it. More galaxies in the universe than grains of sand on the beach, and that's what we're talking about when we say God, the one, the and its infinite dreams.
All right. Now I'm going to switch over. We'll look at some notes here. Now this show called Midnight Mass, and a lot of times you think of Midnight Mass as like sacrilegious rituals and scary stuff, physically kind of scary. And this show might have some gore in it or something, and people think that's what's scary. But I think what we just heard is what's terrifying, and that should be what a person leaves the movie saying, "I can't unhear that. I can't unhear that." The explanation of death here. All right, so God is the cosmos. with its infinite dreams that it forgets. And here she means by cosmos material stuff, which she thinks she's apparently, I guess, bought into string theory. And material stuff is just tiny little strings vibrating. And the slower they vibrate, that, and then you get chunks of matter. But it's just a materialist explanation of the cosmos. So she thinks matter is eternal, has existed from eternity. And our matters here, our consciousnesses pop up and go back out of existence. Now, think about this. She's thinking about this as death approaches. Now, if death doesn't get us to stop and think, what will? I mean, that's the most serious thing that happens to us, our loved ones, their death, our death. That should get us to stop and think. But if a person hasn't been thinking their whole life, never critically examining their assumptions, never looking for meaning, when that time comes, and a lot of people don't get that, some people die suddenly. But if you're blessed enough to get that time to think as your death approaches, and you've neglected reason your whole life, at that last vital moment, you won't have the ability to think. You've neglected it. It'd be like you're called upon to lift a 25-pound weight, but you've neglected your body your whole life and you can't lift things. So you've neglected your mind. So she's called upon here to think critically. Instead, she tells us a story, and there's nice music, and it's sentimental, and you really feel it, but it's incoherent. So she is God. Now, this is the ancient temptation. You can be as gods, knowing good and evil. All right. God's the cosmos. She's the cosmos. All is one. All things are part of this. Now, she is not real because she existed before the material body. And that seems like a direct contradiction. Well, what she's saying is the she that is not real is Aaron, who had a birthday and then a death day. But the she that is eternal is the energy of the cosmos, and the energy is vibrating strings, I guess, things vibrating. So vibrating things are eternal. And she's just the totality, Aaron, of her physical energy. When that breaks up, she no longer exists. So vibrations are eternal. But here's a problem. Matter's not eternal. It's not self-maintaining. Motion is not self-maintaining. Things that vibrate slow down until they stop, unless something external to them bumps them and makes them vibrate again. But if we're talking about the whole system, there's nothing external to start it vibrating again. So it would slow down and stop. Had it existed from eternity, it already would have stopped. And that's why materialist cosmologists today don't even say the universe is eternal. They say it's like 18 billion years old, because had it existed from eternity, it already would have gone through what they call the heat death of the universe. It hasn't yet, therefore it hasn't existed from eternity. Now, throwing in other universes doesn't help. You might say, well, this universe, but before that was another one. Well, it has the same problem. Okay, but before that was another one. Or a multiverse with quantum tunnels between them. None of that helps. It just makes the problem bigger. It's like adding zeros at the end of a number, but it's still less than eternity. After eternity, all universes, all multiverses would have run out, burned down. So her beginning premise, again, a materialist one, you might want to switch to a spiritualist or idealist one and say, no, matter's not eternal. There's just an eternal mind. That's not what she said, though. Cosmos, physical energy. So that's a separate one. We're just analyzing this view right now. So she forgets that she's the universe. Now, this is a common story. I'll call it Gnosticism. And this is the view that you're an eternal spirit and you get stuffed into a body, and the goal is to get back out of the body and become God again. Well, here's some problems with that. Now it goes from a materialist story to a dualist story. There's matter and mind. You're an eternal mind or spirit. If you're eternal, you're not dependent on anything. Nothing could force you into a body, which in this story is evil. If you're good, you wouldn't want to be in an evil body. You just say, no, I'm not going to do that. So there's no reason why you get stuffed into a body in the first place, to forget. Not only that, an eternal self couldn't be made to forget. It's more powerful than the body. So the body couldn't make it forget who it is. So in this story, the eternal self forgets who it is due to the constraints of matter and must learn the secret truth, the Gnostic truth. And once again, remember, is Trinity as God? No, none of that's coherent. That involves those contradictions. The identity as God. If you're God, you can't be made to forget. You're the highest power. You're eternally not dependent. So that's the old temptation. You can be God. So that's what she's fallen for. And then she says, I'm not real. This is the last attempt of a person who's neglected reason her whole life to deny that she has responsibility for her unbelief. I'm not even real, so you can't hold me responsible. There will be no me after my death breaks up to hold responsible. Consciousness is an illusion. It's really just vibrations of energy. There's no real consciousness. And forgetfulness, non-consciousness, is the basic reality. Matter's non-conscious, matter's the stuff out of which everything else is made. Consciousness is an illusion. The conscious human self is unreal and is absorbed back into this infinite ocean of unconsciousness, matter. And all of us are. We're all just little chunks of matter, which is God. That's the view that says God is made up of all of us, little chunks. Well, what's eternal isn't made up of parts that could then break apart. Now, why does this matter? Why do these incoherencies matter? She's dying. Let her tell her story. Well, it matters because it's a horror movie, right? It's terrifying. You see someone approaching death, an adult who's had all these years to use reason and learn to think, failed to learn to think, and have one last failed attempt to excuse themselves for their unbelief. I don't know. I never learned what's eternal. I never learned that only God's eternal and I'm not God. And that's okay because I'm not even real. There'll be no consequences. There's no self to be held accountable for the inexcusability of unbelief. No consequences. That's terrifying. To get out of responsibility, the person in the neglect of reason will even deny their own existence. And yet she can't. She keeps coming back to the use of the personal word, I. And that's why it matters. There are consequences for failing to use reason and neglecting reason your whole life, including you don't understand death or what happens after death. That's why this is a good horror story. You could drop the gore, drop all that stuff. Just this segment is terrifying. It might give you nightmares. And so you shouldn't view it unless you're 18 or older. Thanks for joining me in Movies with the Philosopher.